Hi everybody, I'm Tim Newton and I am joined by two members of basketball royalty at Purdue University. First of all, we have to my immediate right our current head coach, Sharon Versyp, and to her right is our new associate head coach and in the next year our head coach, Katie Gearlds. And first of all, let me start with Katie. Welcome back to campus. Talk me through these last few days and weeks when it all became apparent that you might be coming back to your alma mater.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I just keep trying to tell everybody it's just been a roller coaster for me, trying to finish up the season and what we were working on at Marion, but also looking for the future individually and personally, professionally. Just a wild ride. Driving up here yesterday morning, a lot of nerves, but as soon as you get on campus, you just feel like you're at home, and it's exactly what I felt yesterday, and excited to have the opportunity to work with Coach and be back home. I mean, it's literally a dream come true.
Sharon, let's talk about the succession plan. When it all came about and you were thinking about who might be the best person, why was Katie Gearlds the right choice for you?
She was the only choice. We built a very good relationship when I first got the job here, and I was fortunate enough to coach her senior year, and it was just who she is, the character of who she is, and that's what's most important. I think that the character, the loyalty, the integrity, the respect, that's a Boilermaker through and through, and when you have that individually together, and we continued to have that, throughout all the years afterwards. I mean, that's the bond. That's why we do what we do. I get into coaching, and it's this. We were talking about that yesterday. You have wins and losses, but who's going to pick up the phone and say, hey, I got this, and I got this? And Katie and I just have always had a great relationship. Competitor, winner, on and off the court, motivator, played at the highest level, all those great things. And, you want to bring your own home. So it was just, it's a great opportunity for both.
Katie, you had the opportunity to play for Sharon your senior season. What were you able to learn from her that you took not only in your playing career, but then forward into your coaching career?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Coach just took me from All Big Ten to All-American. I think that's what I tell everybody. I probably don't end up being an All-American if I don't play my senior year for Coach. It is what it is. She just took me to another level. And it was an easy transition, of course, but it was the right transition for me personally as a player. And then moving forward, obviously played some years professionally, but moving forward into the coaching profession, I catch myself saying things that I heard Coach say, and I'm just like, man, I sound just like Coach, right? Just those little things. And just being a competitor, like Coach said, and a motivator, and it's the wins. Yes, you want to win, right? That's important, but the dream is really the relationships you get to build with 18 to 22-year-old women and help them become who they are destined to become. Those phone calls when they're in trouble or when something big happens in their life and they're calling you, that's the biggest thing. It's what you always want as a coach, to just have those relationships. And I only got 1 year with Coach, and I feel like from that minute we had that relationship. Every time I drove to Mishawaka and played Bethel, I text Coach hey, your hometown, here I am, and it's just I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to have played for just 1 year for Coach.
Sharon, they say that players can be an extension of the coach on the floor. Mm-hmm. You got a chance to coach Katie her senior season. What did you see from her at that point that led you to believe that she could go into coaching and that she would make a good coach when her playing days were done?
I mean, she just had incredible basketball IQ, besides being one of the most confident players that I've ever coached. I mean, she just knew she was great, and she knew that she could make everybody around her great. I always talk about that there's good players and then there's great players. The great players are great for themselves but better for their team and make everybody around them better. So, wasn't sure if she's going to get into coaching. I just knew with the WNBA and playing professionally. But you have a gift. She empowered our young women just that 1 year. I always talk about Katie even when she left. You talk about leadership. She's the one who's telling other people, man, you're an All-American, empowering them. You're great. You need to do X, Y, and Z, because she needed them to be great around her for us to almost get to the Final Four that year. So, and her motivation. We tease and back and forth, but she can laugh at herself and have fun as well. And you have to be able to do that. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. And but the motivation, the competitor, You know, I think those are the things that totally separated her. And like I said, we built that relationship in 1 year. And so you knew she was a relationship person, and that's at the end of the day, that's when you're going to be a great coach.
You talk about that motivation, Katie. I can't remember if it was after your freshman or sophomore season, an NCAA tournament loss that was a very close loss. And if I remember right, you used a shot from that game as a screensaver to motivate you going forward.
Yeah, freshman year we were in Seattle. We lost to Georgia at the buzzer. The kid hit a baseline jumper over me. I mean, man, I could remember it to this day, right? Like, we lost, I think Erica missed a layup that would have taken us to the Elite Eight. We had a great squad that year. But, yeah, I mean, you want to win, right? And just being competitive, and that's the motivation to win, you know, to get banners hanging in Mackey, to win championships, to win games. I mean, you know, relationships are what it's all about, but winning is right there too.
Well, let's talk about winning, because I've got some numbers here. In 29 years of combined coaching, 646 wins between the two of them. They did okay for themselves as players too on the court, a total of 3,539 points, and they both finished in the top 15 in points, free throw percentage, and assists in their time at Purdue. Sharon, when you look back on let's start with your playing career. What do you remember most, and what do you take most from that time here at Purdue?
Just helping build a foundation here at Purdue. You know, my freshman year, our freshman class was kind of, all of us were the first time they had full ride scholarships, the whole 15 allotment. So for us to help build that foundation, and when I was done as a senior, then they went to the Sweet 16, won a Big Ten, you know, championship. You know, after that senior year, you know, you felt like you helped build something. And I always laugh, Katie, I didn't have a three-point line. So
you'd have a lot more points
Duly
than I
noted.
had.
Duly noted. You notice I didn't put three-point shooting in there because you can't compare those two.
No, and it was just, again, it's you know, Purdue has always been family, and it's been home. And the relationships I created during that time, and I felt like I grew just incredible here at Purdue, not just the academic side, but I had played for 3 college coaches. So I think that really helped my basketball career. So when I did elevate myself and was able to take over certain teams, I could say, hey, I have been in your shoes. I've walked a day in your shoes. And I know that can be difficult. But, you know, Mackey Arena is one of the best places to ever play basketball. And there's times I still just sit into Mackey when I just need a moment and just look around. I mean, it's always going to be dear to me.
Katie, you also went through a coaching transition, having Sharon with your senior season, Christy Curry the 3 years before that. Talk about going through that change and how that prepared you, not only as a player, but again, as you go through your coaching career.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, right? Let's be honest. You know, I playing for Coach Curry for 3 years. I mean, that's why I came to Purdue. Purdue sold itself, but Coach kind of just sealed the deal there. And it was everything it could have been. But Coach V coming in was everything I needed as a player. Everything our team needed as a player. And I mean, we made a run to the Elite Eight, and you know, I know I hit a few threes in that game against Carolina, and I thought we had a chance, just couldn't quite get over the hump to get all the way there. But, you know, my conversation with my team on Friday was not easy, but I had experience, and it's exactly, you know, I know what it was like, but I also know that sticking together as a team, you know, is what rallied us to grab onto Coach Versyp and become. You know, we went 31-5 that year, something like 31-6, and you know, it's because we stayed together and just trusted the process. And as a player, my senior year, I felt like it was my duty to grab onto our team and, you know, empower Lindsey Wisdom Hilton and say, dude, you're at Kodak. I mean, what are you doing? Like, you're an All-American. You need to be our horse. And you know, we had a fun ride.
You know, if you look at recruiting and playing, and it's all about relationships. We've talked about this over the years. Let me skip forward now to where we are in the present.
Right.
How do you build relationships when you can't have the face-to-face contact with people that you've had before?
Well, I mean, you know, Katie's gone through it with her team and her recruiting, and we did as well. And, you know, I just think our staff does such a great job of constant communication, whether it's text, whether it's FaceTime. Every kid talks and speaks differently. Some want to talk on the phone, some don't. But I think the Zooms is really important, that you have all of our staff together. And that's what we've been doing is, you know, bringing Katie in right now is that relationship piece with current players and recruits and seeing the dynamic and seeing how we fit so well together, and how this is such a great situation. And but you have to be able to put yourself out there. You've got to be pounding phones. You've got to be talking to parents. But like I told you, I'm all about face-to-face, you know, and I know this day and age it's this, but parents want to see your face, you know, and so I think it's very important, and so we're going to continue to do that.
All right, you both coached through a COVID season, which we hope, by the way, is the last one. Talk about the difficulties, Katie, not just in a relationship standpoint, but during the game, communicating. How difficult was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty soft-spoken, and now I have a mask on, and having to, you know, it's not Mackey Arena. You know, the PE Center at Marion is quite small, and not a lot of fans there. But even my teams would, my players would always, hey, what are you saying? You know, slide your mask down. That was difficult, but you know, we were fortunate at our level. You know, we played 33 games and finished 27-6, and I think the hardest part was the cancellation of games the day of the game or the day before the game, you know, because your kids had been putting in the work. You know, we got to work out all summer. We got to work out in the fall. We had those opportunities. And, you know, just to see like, hey, this game's canceled, it was crushing. But, you know, I was so proud, and it's a season that I will always remember. Not because, I mean, we didn't win the championship, right? But it was, I never learned how to be so selfless from 12 individuals than I did this past season.
And for you, Sharon, Boilermakers had 3 games canceled, which was not bad compared to a lot of other teams in the conference. And the good news is none of those were Purdue's problem. It was the other team's problem. But talk about, again, the challenges and maybe things that you learned this year that you might be able to push forward after the COVID pandemic is done.
You know, as we talked to, it was always the 5-minute rule. It could change in 5 minutes, and you know, we could be in practice and say, hey, someone tested positive, they got to come out, you need to sit X, Y, and Z. And, you know, so, you know, the biggest thing is we just talked about that self-sacrifice that every young adult had to do, and the power of the mind. I think we all grew mentally, emotionally, and, you know, they had to rely on each other, even though they weren't around every single second, but that was their bubble, you know, so I thought that we became such a close-knit family, but now moving forward, it's going to be great because we can actually have our summer, which we didn't have last year. We have the team building. You can do things. You can be active together and build that relationship, because as we had pieces coming in, 4 new pieces coming in, they never got those intangible off-season, working on themselves, working on that team chemistry. Even though it's very close, it's just going to be so much different because you can actually enjoy one another this year.
You mentioned your newcomers. One of the 4 freshmen coming in is Jayla Smith, who is the 10th Indiana Miss Basketball to play at Purdue. You are 2 of the 10. Katie, what did that mean to you, and how did it change the way you carried yourself, the way you conducted yourself going forward?
Growing up as an Indiana girls basketball player, that is the dream, right? Like, you want to wear that #1 for the state of Indiana. And, you know, going into my freshman year of high school, I remember distinctively having a conversation with my mom, like, I'm going to do this. And it didn't matter what it took, you know, the 6 a.m.s, you know, I think like Larry Bird, I had a key to the high school, right? I was getting in the gym before anybody got there. And that was just what I wanted. And the support I had from my family, my teammates, I mean, it's literally the highest honor for an Indiana girls basketball player. And so excited to have Jayla come on board as the 10th member. I mean, that's Indiana Miss Basketballs belong at Purdue.
There's only one first. You were the first Miss Basketball to play at Purdue, and that really kind of opened the door for others. Talk about what it meant to you personally.
I mean, it definitely was huge. And one thing that I told Jayla when I called her to congratulate her is that you are living this moment and you're on cloud 9, because obviously I'm much older than Katie and Jayla, but I'm like...
Then one of the 2 people.
But I'm like, this will change your life the rest of your life. Like, you don't really understand until you continue to grow and, you know, get older, and they bring people back for, you know, Indiana, you know, the all-star teams, but Miss Basketballs. You're going to go back and meet prior Miss Basketballs and Mr. Basketballs, and it's just an honor. And so I kind of talked to her and her parents, like, how this will affect the rest of her life, and that she needs to enjoy it. She earned it every step of the way. And I mean, we all have that dream, but reality. You know, like Katie said, what she wanted. Well, I was in 6th grade sitting next to my dad watching Judy Warren, the Miss Basketball, the very first one, 1976. I said, I'm going to be like her.
Yeah.
And then I met her, and I stayed with her. They live out on a farm in Warsaw, and for 2 weeks, you know, I thought I was all that. I wasn't all that until she taught me what all that was, you know. And I mean, you got to have great mentors, and for me to be the, you know, obviously get that honor, but then come to Purdue as the first. Obviously, I have a lot of pride, and I'm very proud of that.
All right, let's get back to the present. And Katie, you're in day 2, so I know you're completely ensconced in what we're doing here now. But talk about what you see as your role on this year's basketball team.
Oh, man. Whatever needs to be done, I'm going to do it. You know, building relationships with the current players and the incoming players, getting out and recruiting. You know, that's probably first and foremost on my mind. But, you know, there's a lot of really good pieces on our roster. And, you know, yesterday was day 1, and, you know, we went through all of those kids, and excited to sit down with Beth and Michael and Coach today and just start to go through the X's and O's and what's next for this team and the possibilities of putting the roster together, what we have, because there are a lot of good pieces, and I think it's going to be a fun ride.
Sharon, talk about, from your standpoint, you've had certainly assistant coaches before, but we know that Katie will succeed you next year as the head coach. What does that change from your standpoint in how you might use her or rely on her, or what her role might be?
You know, I think the biggest thing is, you know, Katie's got to dive in and build those relationships, like she said, with the players and with the recruits, and, you know, getting out there. I think that's extremely important. But it's just the day-to-day, you know. She's going to work just as hard as everybody else. You know, be able to kind of show, she's going to have her own style, obviously, but just all the behind the scenes, you know, the management, you know, just the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, from my viewpoint of just, because, I mean, it's just running a huge company. And so, you know, that's going to be the biggest thing. But, you know, we want her wealth of knowledge. We want her individual development on the court. I mean, we want X's and O's. I mean, that's what we want for everybody. But with her, obviously, that commitment and knowing what Purdue wants and being able to, again, every year we're going to put those pieces together. Well, what do you see? Because now she's outside and looking in, how important that is. And as we go, you know, it's going to be important that she has a big impact on everything.
You know, we've seen recruiting change, certainly over time. From the time you were a student, we didn't have social media. We did have electricity, but we didn't have social media and all the other things that we have. And Katie, as you look at it now, certainly you're going to recruit high schools, but now with the way the transfer portal works, that's another tier that every year coaches, I think, are going to at least have to take a look at and say, what talent's available out there?
Yeah, it's definitely new to me at the NAI level. I mean, we don't have access to the portal, so it's not something that we would have ever taken advantage of. And you know, talking to Michael and Beth yesterday, the amount of kids in the portal is just a new era, and almost one where you like, hey, let me coach my team this year, because you never know what's going to happen. Let's make sure we have those pieces and still build towards the future. But the portal is something that can be, you know, beneficial, but you got to make sure you're finding the right pieces to come in from that portal. Why did they get in? What happened? What was it? I think those are important pieces to know, because you don't want someone coming in that's going to be an issue. You got to make sure you're finding the right pieces, and you know, I like our game plan so far.
Sharon, the great American philosopher Joe Tiller once told me, don't be blinded by talent. And I think, as Katie mentioned, you might look at a player, whether it's in the portal or even the high school level, and they've got great talent, but if they can't get along with their fellow players, if they're selfish, if they're all about themselves, not a great fit.
No, and that's what we talked about. We're like, when you talk to these players, if they say certain things, then we know they're not a good fit. Make sure that we're talking to all the pieces around them. I mean, we're recruiting all over, but I think the key is why are they leaving? But the culture is most important. I mean, that's bottom line. That's most important, and especially with the transfer portal. I mean, there'll be over 1,000 soon. I mean, the last 2 years, it just keeps going, and now this year with that, you know, with the new rule, you can just play right away. I mean, it's just in the COVID-free year.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just going to go. So we have to be mindful, but we look at that and we're like, we do some things. We look at those kids and then we just kind of, you really do your due diligence and kind of weed out certain characteristics.
Let's talk about the league that you're coming back to, Katie, because this Big Ten was pretty, I think we found out in the NCAA tournament, it's a pretty good conference.
Yeah, not bad, right? It's always, even when I played, and when it's always one of the best in the country, and this year was no different. We have 4 teams in the Sweet 16, and, and just the depth from top to bottom. It's not just the 2 or 3, the 1, 2, and 3, the parity from 1 all the way down is there, and as a competitor, who doesn't want that? Every day you want the challenge of putting the right game plan together, putting your players in the right spots, and making sure they have the opportunity to take advantage of all those things. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
And Sharon, in the 30-plus years I've been around the league, I think the biggest difference now is there were times you could look at the 3 or 4 teams at the bottom, and as long as your playing wheels hit the ground, you had a sure win. That's not the case anymore.
No, it isn't, and that's what's exciting about the Big Ten. We've got some great coaches and done great recruiting, and all of us coaches in the Big Ten really helped create that. And and hats off. And we all are communicating, and it was interesting when we did all our Zoom calls. We spent more time talking than we did when we were in person live. Everybody's in their own zone, so we really connected, and we were just pushing our league nonstop. And when you have as many, last year we would have got nine teams in. This year we had those teams in, probably 8, but Ohio State wasn't. And then getting to, getting to that Elite 8 opportunities and that type of stuff. But, and it's a young league.
Yeah.
So it's going to come back and be just as good.
Let me stay with you on this next question first, and that is, talk us through the game plan in terms of what's the schedule from now until you start basketball, hopefully on time next November.
Yeah, we start next week. We start individual workouts and getting back and lifting and getting our body movement on. So we gave them a month off because the majority of our kids had never gone home since they got here last August. So you already can tell that a couple that got to go home or come back and they're just refreshed, ready to go. They can't wait. We all need to see our family, and they weren't able to do that. So that I appreciate our players sacrificing so much. It was huge. So, but we'll have 3 weeks of workouts. So we have an opportunity to get in the gym and just get their bodies going and what we need to work on in order for them when they come back in June. So then when we add all the pieces in June, then it pretty much, this is our vision for the program. This is what we're going to be doing, X, Y, and Z, and we have the workouts with strength and conditioning, and now you start putting your game plan in for next year. But, May is always the time that they get to go home and they still have to do workouts, but at least we'll have our hands on for 3 weeks.
All right, Katie, they tell us that head coaches are the ones that makes decisions and the assistant coaches are the one that makes suggestions. So you're going to go back for a year now to making suggestions. Have you kind of worked through that in your mind? How, okay, I have to, here's my seat on the bench and here's coach's seat on the bench.
Yeah, the problem is going back to making suggestions because I've never been one to have to make suggestions. So I've only been the head coach. I think working with coaches is going to be incredible. I think that, we get each other. And she's got a great basketball mind, and maybe even as a player, I didn't quite make suggestions. I just did it, right? I'm looking forward to learning. And literally, I went home and just wrote down everything that happened yesterday because I've got to jump all in. I've got to learn how it goes. I've had to manage one assistant coach in 8 years, and that's it. Now I'm managing. I'll have the opportunity to manage an entire staff, and like Coach said, a company, right, and run a company. And I'm all in. I'm literally. I don't know. Coach gave me a notebook yesterday. I think I'm going to need about 20,000 more of them because I'm just going to write everything down, and I think it's going to work out okay. I think we're going to trust each other, and we're going to find ourselves with a lot of wins.
All right, last question then. Let's talk to the fans directly. Let's talk about this season and why they should get excited about Purdue basketball in 2021-22.
Well, hopefully it'll go back to normal. hopefully we can have those.
We're knocking with both hands.
You know, fans back in the seats. You know, Katie right along with our staff. The excitement for this year and obviously for the future. We have a great group coming back, like Katie said. I mean, there's some really nice pieces coming back and adding some players in, and you know, continuing to score the basketball, play on both ends of the floor. Got some exciting players that can do some really great things for us. So just the excitement of actually having a normal year, but having Katie beside us, that should be fire everybody up.
All right, Katie, your pitch to the fans here.
Oh man, I mean, who doesn't want to watch a game in Mackey Arena? And having to sit a year out and not be able to be there, you know, I think that's got to be the first and foremost. And I just think, you know, obviously it's great to be back here, but it's not about me. It's about these kids that put in a year and sacrificed so much for the opportunity to play college basketball and represent Purdue the best that they could in the right way. And now to get back to normal, right, to have fans in the stands. I remember, I mean, and Coach, you probably do too, every time you walk out of the tunnel or run out of the tunnel and you see, you know, you see the fans, you see the excitement, you hear the noise. I mean, there's not a better place to watch basketball than Mackey Arena. And who wouldn't want to be on board, right? Like, it is, you know, we're not waiting 5-10 years. I mean, the time is now to get us back to, you know, a national level scene. And like I said, I think we're ready for it.
Well, two people here who've not only contributed a great deal on the court, but I think more importantly off the court, the contributions Katie made as a player and as a coach at Marion, and that Sharon has done in the community here in Lafayette. Certainly greatly appreciated. We're grateful that you're both going to be here, and let's get this season started. Can't wait.
Yes, sir.
Great.
All right, for Katie Gearlds and for Sharon Versyp, this is Tim Newton. We'll talk to you at Mackey Arena. Boiler up, everybody.